like under actions it just says beard. Hello, I'm James.
And I'm Emmy.
And welcome back to the Bestiary, Monster Manual A through Z. And we're starting another little mini-series of our monster examinations this week. Emmy, who's up?
It's time to go to hell! It's the devils!
Be it highway or other means of transportation, yes, we are finally arriving in the Nine Hells. Devils, as well as demons, previously examined, get their own little subsection in the Monster Manual, and so we're treating them kind of as their sort of own grouping, rather than just going through alphabetically, as we do for the others. I really like devils. Personally, and this is purely opinion, no real justification for this, I prefer devils to demons.
You know, I would say that devils have, not universally of course, a little bit more opportunity for subtlety and roleplay. There are some demon lords who are a little bit more about manipulating the system and things like that, but for the most part, if you're dealing with a demonic incursion, it just wants to consume. It's just there to take everything in its path, eat it, and keep on moving. Devils are actively there to manipulate the material plane and manipulate you, so they actually make really fun baddies. Yeah,
and to me that's always been the crucial difference that I've interpreted between lawful evil and chaotic evil, whereas chaotic evil is all about destruction and chaos. Lawful evil is about control, corruption, tyranny, and to me that's just a bit more interesting. Now, as we did with demons, one of the most interesting things and the coolest stuff they have to offer are the kind of equivalent of the demon lords in Devilldom. It's the archdukes and archduchesses of hell, Asmodeus et al. But because they're not statted in the Monster Manual, we're going to do their own thing later on when we move on to other publications. So for now, we're just going to look at what is in the manual, and again, we get to start off at the lowest of the low, and anybody who's been following this series will know that I love things that are just kind of defined by their terribleness.
Oh,
and
this is...
The Lemure is even worse than the Manus that we looked at with demons.
It's another challenge rating 0. It's another one that it's even worse. It's not even mud. It's just like glop. It doesn't even have the pluses of mud. It's 0.
With the infernal hierarchy as it's known, you've got your lesser devils, your greater devils, and then your archdevils. The Lemure doesn't even register in that. It's below lesser.
Yeah, it doesn't even get it is its own category. It is its own state of being. It is Lemure. And they are really the foundation, though, for all of that silliness upon which Hell's is built. Because unlike the Abyss, which is eternal, it's made of itself. It will just keep producing demons forever and ever and ever. Devils require a basis from which to be promoted. So all devils at some point were a Lemure, and Lemures are made from damned souls of mortals, which is really why they're going to be manipulative more on the material plane than demons, generally speaking, of course. But they're, as silly as they are a foundation, but they're very silly.
I mean, foundation is right. If we look at the art, like, it's kind of molded to the floor. Its speed is 15, and I think that's reflected in the art. You just kind of picture this thing slowly slithering towards you, this somewhat amorphous mound of flesh, maybe?
Yeah, I don't know. That's what it doesn't even really look like it has bones other than the teeth. You can kind of see where there's formation of a facial feature happening. The arms are different shapes, and they don't look like they're held together by any hard surface underneath like a bone. I think they're just kind of there to give you a sense of what they look like, except for the teeth just popping awkwardly out of this ghastly horror.
I think it's kind of a reflection of the fact that it understands Infernal, but it can't speak, so it's just kind of there going like...
You can hear this art. You can actively hear it when you look at it. He's just got this sad groan as his hands just kind of wildly flail at you. It's just pathetic.
I mean, one thing he does have going for him is the hellish rejuvenation, so unless you kill them in a very specific way, like centered around use of holy water and, you know, stuff that ultimately will defeat devils, it's going to just regrow after a certain amount of time.
It'll just go straight back to hell. And that's, again, another one of those things about hell. Hell just keeps building upon itself, is that it just can't keep just taking everything back. Much like demons, everything, for the most part, will rejuvenate in hell upon its death.
Yeah. But as much as I like to talk about the terribleness of some of these things, we should probably actually look at things that are somewhat of a challenge.
Something that's not just it's AC is 7, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should probably move on up a class to an imp.
Imps,
how promotion within Devils work is that everything starts as a Lemure, and then based on how well you do, you get promoted. And the next step up is Imp, which is goes to a challenge rating 1 and is kind of a little person.
Yeah, and an imp, I think, is a great, fairly early on way of demonstrating the nature of the Nine Hells in their desire to corrupt and influence and control, rather than just out and out kill and destroy. Because an imp is ultimately not really much of a threat. It's there to sort of sit invisibly on your shoulder and whisper in your ear, or be like a spy for something greater than itself or something like that. But again, the artwork, it is your classic little, devil.
Yeah, he definitely, and he plays this way too. Looks like that little guy that sits on your shoulder and tells you all the nasty little things you could be doing. He's got a very classic build. He very much looks like he's out of an old-time cartoon, singing with kind of a deep baritone voice with a little pitchfork. He is tiny. He's an itty-bitty little guy, and you can see he's got some bug-like features because of that, with the scorpion tail, the little feet that kind of almost look like they claw onto something. This is a little guy.
Tiny, as opposed to just small, so yeah, it can just sit on your shoulder. And the skills reflect, I think, the nature of this creature. You know, persuasion, stealth, deception, all respectable bonuses for something of a fairly low challenge rating. It's a shape changer, it has magic resistance, and as you say, with the scorpion tail, it's got a poisonous sting it can use.
It's really fun, especially considering that this is a guy that actually exists as familiars. So, just like the Quasit, this guy can be a familiar. You're most often going to see this with Pact of the Chain Warlocks, but he can be convinced to be a familiar to something else if you summon him. And he does actively want to corrupt his summoners. So, devils can be bound in service through very specific rituals and spells, if you know their name. And most devils will actively fight that and try very hard to, while of course corrupting you at the same time, try and fight that hold and that bond and get themselves free. Imps actively look for service. They are actively looking for people to be bound to so they can corrupt them.
Yeah, and of course, like all devils, they love a bargain. They love an agreement. Exchanging one thing for another. This is one thing that I particularly like about devils as a whole, and about imps in particular, because it's kind of their defining trait, really. This seeking out service, seeking out a barter of power for souls, or that kind of thing.
Yeah. As far as fighting him goes, like you were saying, he's a shapeshifter, he's got his poison. We are starting to see, and you can actually even see this in Lemures, they do have Devil's Sight where they can see through magical darkness. He's resistant to fire and poison. I imagine that you're most likely to be fighting one of the, honestly, again, alongside one of these, if you have a warlock or something like that. The chances of you really and truly fighting against an imp, it's just gonna vamoose.
yeah, I was going to say, it's not going to fight to the death, is it? Like, if it's losing or, something is not going its way, it's just going to peace out.
It's going to scoot.
It has no reason to...
That's not its modus operandi, even a little. But the next guy up, the spined devil, is very likely to actually fight you.
Until it starts to lose. Like, I actually really like these guys. That the image of this kind of fly, my pretties, these sort of winged, spiny monstrosities flying through the air.
They're kind of elegant in their devilish, hedgehog-ish nature. They definitely look like some evil Sonic happening, but they're pretty.
I love this art.
Yeah, the mouth, the way it peels back, the way all of him slides along the spines, down the wings. He's very pretty. The color is just hypnotically beautiful. There's just a lot going on and a lot to say about this piece.
These kind of big, leathery wings. I mean, big compared to the body, it is still a small creature. The leathery wings, the skin tone, the size of the mouth as compared to the eyes, like, it's distilled malevolence is what I see there. But it is highlighted in the lore about these creatures that they are craven in nature. Like, they will fly in en masse using their kind of ranged spine attacks, but as soon as they start to lose, they're gone.
This guy, he's a challenge rating 2, but you're very likely to see this guy in Swarm. So you still might fight these guys a little bit later down the road because, like you're saying, they're kind of chicken on their own. So unless you're fighting a big old swarm of them, at which point they are fairly confident they are artillery, they're going to fly above your heads and try and hit you from above. Look up. But this guy is almost certainly going to be fighting you with lots of little barbs, which just sounds awful.
Yeah. Actually, for a challenge rating 2, and we've seen a few of these with demons and, as we will get to with quite a few devils, gets a multi-attack. For a challenge rating 2 and what is really meant to be more of a swarm enemy, it gets to get in there with its bite, fork, tail, spine, depending on whether it's in melee or at range.
It's kind of a butt, and it's got a bunch of resistances, too. Cold, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical or silvered weapons. So it really requires you to actually kind of be a higher level if you actually want to actively deal with this thing. Yeah, and I think it's one of those creatures that DMs will secretly love because they're fun to fight, but they're also as annoying as hell. Yeah. Like, they're going to be flying in, resisting damage, spining at you, and then flying off away again. And your party is just going to be, I'll cut back so I can kill you. So we can actually kill you. And their fly speed, much like many things, is 40, but they're small, they're hard to hit, and they're flying above your head faster than you can keep up with them. So they're really just a pain. Speaking of pain, you've got the spined, he is the spine, the bearded devil, with his snake-like chinish protrusions. This guy's always confounded me. Yeah, I would say when looking at both mechanically and in terms of the artwork, probably the most bizarre of the ones that we're looking at. This guy reeks of that really old school D&D design, where they're just a little funky in a really delightful but nonetheless odd way, where there's just these odd protuberances that are sticking out of his chin, and he gets an attack which is just labeled beard. Yeah, that's possibly my favorite thing about the bearded devil is just actions, multi-attack, makes 2 attack, it makes 1 attack with its beard. Yeah, this is a bizarro world Medusa where it's just coming for ya. And the roleplay of that is really hilarious because, again, this is a guy, as much as they are infantrymen, they're here to fight you, you're also likely to talk to this guy. It's a devil. They want to talk to you. They want to corrupt you. I know I've played in a campaign where we had a lot of interaction, actually, with a bearded devil. He messed with us for quite some time, even though we probably could have casually wiped him out by the time we were really dealing with him en masse. He had such an amount of hold over us that we still had to deal with him conversationally, and it sucked.
Probably a case of Bearded Devil showing quite a bit of restraint in that case. These guys are, with their description, are like shock troops, and they relish violence, and any sort of perceived slight is an excuse to, get in there and wreck some people.
Yeah, and he's built for it. I mean, again, as looking at this guy in the art, as silly as that beard is, it's still kind of scary with all those spines on it. He's got this big old weapon. He's well armored. He's very intentionally coming for you.
The thing that I like, actually, and I commend the person responsible for this particular piece, is that, say you take away those beardy protrusions, it's essentially a purple, devilish-looking humanoid, like aggressive, big old glaive weapon, great brutish expression. And then it's like, yeah, you know what? Let's stick some spiny tentacle beard things on him as well and make him just look really weird.
And the way they protrude out of the skin, it almost gives me the heaves. Because they don't look like they're part of him. It looks like they've grown out from underneath. And it's just, it just sets off that part of your brain that just doesn't, I do not want.
Yeah. I mean, they're not actually, but they almost look a little bit like they're thinking for themselves, just in the way in which the movement is shown.
The devil has names for each hair of his beard.
Hey, don't give me any ideas, Emmy. Like, if I ever get a stat block, I'm having beard as an action.
Hey, just like a devil, I'm here to tempt you. Thank you so much for joining us today on The Bestiary. What do you think? Does a lemure have a fine bone structure, or does it just grow out of the ground like a protuberance? Let us know in the comments down below. You can subscribe, hit that bell, it really does help us out, give us a like, and here you can watch some more videos, and join us next time when we continue our descent into hell.
It gets increasingly spiky.